All right, we're going to start in a moment right now. Actually, Sean, let's go ahead and start.
Okay.
Anyone else that's coming in, they can join it in the process.
Yes.
But let's go ahead and let's start a presentation. You're on, Sean. Go. Let's go, my friend.
Okay, sounds good. So, thank you guys for joining us on this lovely Saturday afternoon. Just a quick fun fact before we get into the presentation is renting versus owning. What's the difference? I often joke with some of my rental clients and I ask them when they're ready to get into a mortgage. And they tell me that they're not ready to get into a mortgage because they don't want, the cost of it. But I tell them, did you know that you are already paying for a mortgage when you're renting? It's just not your own. You're actually paying for your landlord's mortgage. So exactly. This is a great program with the rent to own, as we are helping people go from renting to get into home ownership. So, if you ever had dreams of getting into home ownership, but haven't done so because of the down payment, I just want you to know that you are not alone. There are many Canadians in your situation that are, trying to get into home ownership, but the home down payment is really what's holding them back. So one moment here. Oop, just kind of skipped over a lot. So without further ado, I would like to welcome you all to our presentation. Today, we will be discussing the Rent to Own program, which is an Ontario-based initiative designed to help families overcome financial barriers to home ownership. So I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Sean Finley. I'm a real estate agent with Century 21. I would like to introduce as well my partner, Ian Lavelle, who's been in the industry for over 20 years. He has a lot of experience in both residential and commercial real estate. As well, my office manager, Trevor Evans, who could not be with us today, but he sends his regards.
Thank you.
So we're just going to review the agenda and discuss the benefits of the program, why our program, and the common path to home ownership. So at this point in time, I'm going to pass the baton on to Ian Lavelle, who's going to walk us some key points in the program.
All right, thanks so much, Sean. And I appreciate you guys being out here this afternoon. It's Saturday, it's a beautiful day, and you've taken this time to educate yourself. The biggest part that you can have is educating yourself, because knowledge is power, but the true power is application of knowledge. So we're going to give you some knowledge today, but I'm hoping that you can apply this knowledge. Why? Because the biggest thing is that a lot of people are in this what we call a rent cycle. You get into renting and you're going to rent for the rest of your life, and you need to get out of that cycle. You need to get into the ownership of homes, and a lot of times when you look at trying to get into home ownership, it becomes a very, very large obstacle, and especially in our minds. And it truly is in our minds. And when we start to understand that you can get into it, because there is actually a process and a step to get there, we're going to make sure that you do get there. So we're going to give you a lot of knowledge, but my thing is that let's apply the knowledge. Why? Because when you apply the knowledge, that's where the true power is. So we're going to look at our agenda here. We're going to talk about our different types of programs. So we have the RTO programs, but there are different types of programs. We're going to talk a little bit about that, the two common paths towards home ownership. Let's talk about the cost towards the for the RTO program. We'll discuss that. So we want to make sure that there is great clarity and there's no misunderstandings. And so with regards to what it's going to take in order for you to be able to do the rent home program, we're going to talk about the path to home ownership and also frequently asked questions. And then at the end, if you have any questions throughout, please write down your questions. And as you write down your questions, we'll take it up right at the end, because we know that you'll have some very insightful questions, and hopefully we'll give you some insightful responses. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now, our program's been around for a long time, since 2005. And therefore, I can say we probably have a lot of experience, a lot of knowledge. We've been a member of CARB, which is essentially the organization that oversees rent-to-own programs. And so we are diamond members of CARB since 2015. So it's approximately 7 to 8 years. It will be 8 years this year. And a lot of times people ask, like, does the rent-to-own really work? let's understand this. Over 1,200 people have gone through the rental program, our specific program. As I indicated, there's other programs that are out there, but you probably want to go with the Diamond Class program, one that people know that they get when they go in, that they're going to get through the program. Because a lot of people start rent on, but the issue again is that you want to make sure that you finish the rent on. We've shown a track record of proven success that we not just get you into the program, but we take you to right to the end. But the end means that you actually own that home. So that's the key. And so as I said, since 2005, this program's been administered, and therefore we've got a lot of experience where this is concerned. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now, there's a lot of different types of program. Our program is called Tenant First. When there's a landlord, the other part of the program that's called Landlord First. Landlord First does not have a high success rate. Landlord First meaning that if you're living and you're under a landlord and the landlord says, well, I want to be able to get this house to you, so therefore sell this house to you. A lot of times the problem that people have is that they may have credit issues or they may not have enough of a down payment. So the Landlord First doesn't really have a systematic way to getting you into that ownership. It's a hit and miss situation. When you look at Tenant First means that number one, huge high success rate. Number two is that we look at your credit profile. The biggest thing in rent-own is that a lot of people are coming into rent-own have credit issues, right? Now, having credit issues should not stop you from becoming an owner of a home. So one of the things that we do, and we do very, very well, is that we get you with our credit counselors. We have expert credit counselors that will work with you to correct your credit, whether you're in a bankruptcy, consumer proposal, or just your credit's been off. We have the experience, the expertise that will work with your credit, get your credit to where it needs to get to get you into home ownership, right? So the success with a Tenant First is obviously much greater than when you're dealing with Landlord First. When you're dealing with the Tenant First, we also get into a purchase agreement, right, with a timeline that is identified right from the onset. That's really critical. So when you go into rent-own, you're not hoping or wishing that you're going to have this home, but no, there's a purchase agreement that is set up right at the beginning, right at the onset. You know exactly the price that you're going to be buying that home for and the date that you're going to be buying that home. And therefore, we make sure from the beginning that you're not just in our rental program, you're in a rent to own. Therefore, you shall own that property. Let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Now let's look at the details of rent-own. First and foremost is that, as I said, we're not really concerned about your credit because we know a lot of people that are having issues getting a mortgage are having credit issues. Therefore, there is no minimum beacon. Therefore, whether you've been in a bankruptcy, consumer proposal, or just have really bad credit, that's not our concern because we know our biggest thing is that we want to correct that credit issue, right? The target price, that's very easy to find out. Essentially what it is that you look at your gross income and you multiply by 4.5. Very, very simple. So if you have an income of $100,000, your budget to buy a home is going to be at $450,000. Very simple way of being able to figure out what your budget's going to look like, and therefore you should know that from the onset. Now the down payment for the program starts at target rate 5%. We will make exceptions to 3%, and all that is dependent upon your credit. The better your credit, the lower that you'd have to put down as far as the down payment, but the target rate is 5%. So you should try to be saving up to 5% in order to be able to participate in the rental home program. Now, the payment structure for rental, and this is very important to understand. The way it works is that there is a base rent, right? And what does base rent really mean? Base rent essentially is when the investor is the one that buys the home for you. When they buy that home, they usually put down about 20%. It means that you're going to have a mortgage on that property, right? And that mortgage, because 20% has been put down, is usually a lot smaller than if you only put down 5%, right? Yes. And therefore, you're paying. Hello, sorry. Okay, I thought I heard someone there. So essentially what you're paying is that you're paying the principal, the interest, the taxes, right? And the insurance on the property. So that is essentially what the base rent is. Now, we have another part of it that's called additional savings, right? The issue, what additional savings is that every month you're putting something into that home as part of your down payment, right? Because at the end of the term, whether it's in 2 years or 5 years, what we want to make sure is that you have a sufficient amount of equity that is being built up in that property. Therefore, every month, part of what you're putting down as far as your rent is going directly towards your equity in that home, right? And therefore, by the time you're finished, you should have a significant amount of equity that is built up in that home, and then we can get you that mortgage for that home to become yours. So as we indicated, the total payment includes your property taxes, your insurance. Now, if you're in a condo and there are condo fees, those condo fees are extra, right? And therefore, we don't count the condo fees as part of the payment. Now, the clients, you pay for all your utilities, so the heating and hydro, etc. Those all are paid out of your pocket. So when you're in that property is yours. You're paying for the hydro, you're paying for the heat, you're paying for the water. Now, the property's got to be in prime and very good condition. We don't want you to be going into a property where it's like a fixer-upper, where you're gonna have to start doing renovations so you can even live there. We don't want that kind of property for you. We want you to be able to go into that property. We want it to be something that's move-in ready. And by the time you move in, that property is essentially livable. You can live in there and you don't have to worry about doing any kind of expensive repairs. Now, one of the things that's important about our program is that you can go into a program that is one unit, meaning that it's just a single family home, or it can be multiple units. So it can be a duplex, triplex, it can be a quad. Now, this is important because if you wanted to buy a home and then you wanted to lease out the other units, you can do that. That's not an issue where we're concerned. You can go and live in one unit with your family, and then if you want to rent out the basement as a second unit, you can do that. If you get a duplex and there's a separate unit altogether, or a triplex where there's two other units, you can rent those out, collect that income, and that income it's your income, right? And therefore, you may be able to get into a home if you have multiple units inside there. You may not even be paying anything out of your own pocket, right? So we have that flexibility in our program. Most programs don't allow you to do that, but our program allows you to get as many units as you want, up to 4, and then you can lease those units out yourself. Now, the future purchase price, this is very important. It's predetermined. The way we do it is that there's a 4% appreciation on a year-to-year basis. So if you're buying it at $300,000, there's a 4% appreciation for the next year. So therefore, the next year is $312,000. And if you're in a 2-year program, it may be about $25,000, right? And therefore, there's a 4% appreciation. So you know the predetermined price that you're going to be buying that property for. And therefore, we're going to make sure that you have success in getting a mortgage for that predetermined price that you have in that property. Next slide, please. Now, this is really important. As we indicated, the terms for the property for the rent on is between 2 to 5 years. Now, when the investor buys a property, let's say that this is a property that's costing $600,000. And as we indicated, there's a 4% appreciation. Now, if we're looking at a 3-year term, the price that that investor is selling you that property at is $675,000. Now, let's look at where the real power of this property is. We told you that in that 675, you'd already have equity built up. But let's understand, the market in Ontario, for the most part, it's grown between 6 to 12% over the last 30 years. That's what the market's given to a person that's bought a home. And therefore, a lot of people have a tremendous amount of wealth in their home because of how much it's appreciated over the last 30 years, right? So we are only giving it to you at a 4% increase on a year-to-year basis. So we're being very, very conservative. But let's say the market rose by 12% over those 3 years. That property is worth $843,000, but we're selling it to you for $675,000. Just by the market forces alone, you've increased your equity by over $168,000. That's significant. And therefore, in a lot of other programs, if the equity is increased by the market, that goes directly to the investor. In our program itself, that goes directly towards you. The equity that's built up in the program over the period of time that you're inside that home, before you take full ownership, all that equity belongs to you. Let's think about that for a second, because that's really powerful. It means that right now, if you're renting, you're in that home that you're renting, and what's happening? Hey, the equity that's being built up in that home is going to who? Going to that landlord, right? It's going to the landlord. You're not getting any of that equity.
Absolutely.
Yeah, zero equity. In this program, you know the price you're going to be buying it at, and the equity that's being built up, who does it belong to? It belongs to you. That's the real power of rent to own. So by the time that you take ownership, you have a significant amount of equity that's being built up in that property. Let's go to the next slide, please. Now, who can benefit from the program? Number one is that obviously a lot of people, if you can't get a mortgage, you can't get into a home. Therefore, it's usually a problem with your credit. And therefore, as I indicated initially, we have credit counselors, expert credit counselors that will work with you, and they'll make sure that you get into that home, you improve your credit. A lot of times with the stress test right now, it's very difficult to be able to afford a home just because the bank stress test makes it very difficult. Also, if you don't have much of a down payment, it's very, very difficult to get into a home. Other barriers that we look at as far as getting approved for mortgage, if you're new to the country, again, the banks don't make it easy for you to be able to get a mortgage in order to be able to own that home. Also, if you're self-employed, you got to declare your income. It's very, very difficult, again, to get a mortgage because if you're self-employed. If you're starting a new career, the bank wants to see you being established in that career. And therefore, again, they don't want to look at you. And if you're in a bankruptcy or consumer proposal, no one even wants to touch you if that's your case. In our program, we have no issues with regards to that. Why? Because we know that we're going to correct that situation. We will correct that situation for you. Next slide, please.
So,
This is you now, Sean. Go ahead, please.
so I'm going to just go over the costs that you can typically expect at closing with the program. So first and foremost, as any situation when you're moving, you're going to have your moving day expenses. So that's going to be your truck, your moving crew, your moving team, supplies, boxes, tape. So you're going to need to budget for your moving expenses. Some people forget these expenses, so you're going to want to put that in the budget. As well, with this program, you have the freedom to choose any home that you would like in Ontario. In doing such, we do require a home inspection on the house. This is for your protection to make sure that you are buying a house that is not a lemon. We want to make sure that you're buying a home that is good and it's going to have value, and that everything beneath the walls is what it is. Sometimes, home sellers like to hide things. It's not right. So just to have protection for yourself and the investor, a home inspection is required. And the home inspection cost is in the range of $500 to $550. As well, with this program, we do advise that you get independent legal advice. So we are full transparency with this program. Once we, select the home you want and you get into the program, we'll give you the documentation. You can have your lawyer review it. And on average, to have a lawyer review it, you're looking at in the range of $350 to $400. So you can bring it to your family lawyer. If you don't have one, we can refer you a few lawyers that you can choose from. But this is something that you will need to budget for. As well, with this program, there is an initial program deposit. This program deposit is $975. And this is just a deposit. So at the end of the program, this deposit will be returned to you. Lastly, the last expense that you can expect is your first month's rent payment. So this payment will be due at closing. So essentially the way the program works is you select your home that you would like. Depending on if the home is vacant or if the home is occupied, you can actually move into that house within 30 days up to 90 days, right? So whenever that time of moving in is, whether it's the 30-day or the 90-day period, whenever it's time to move in, your first month's rent to own payment will be due at that time. So I just wanted to go over as well some of the benefits of the rent to own program. We want to see you guys succeed. So we have a bunch of benefits for you. And the first one is a personal financial assessment. So upon entering the program, you will meet with one of our financial planners who will perform a financial assessment upon you and gain further insight into your financial goals, your spending habits, your saving strategies, as well as an advanced budgeting strategy. As well, we want to make sure that you are in a position to get a mortgage. So we want to know what your overall situation looks like. So we're going to pair you up with one of our mortgage experts. So we're going to do a mortgage eligibility assessment. And in doing so, we're going to see what it's going to take to see what, and when it comes time at the end of the program for you to get into a mortgage, so that you have a plan in place from when you enter the program of how you are going to get from point A to point B in terms of getting approved for a mortgage. As well, as part of this program, we want to make sure that you have a financial success exit strategy plan. So we are going to prepare a strategy for you, and that's going to include your monthly budget to make sure that you are able to comfortably pay your rent to own payments, and that when it comes time to transition from renting to home ownership, that you will be able to get approved successfully for a mortgage. Our next benefit of the program is that we want to see you really succeed in this. So we want to make sure that your credit is in a good point of standing when it comes time to transfer the home into your name. So part of the program is a credit building coach consultation. We're going to pair you up with a credit expert who's going to coach you on what it takes to help improve your credit. So if you are in the 400s or 500s, our credit coach will prepare a strategy for you to help get you into the 700s, 800s of where you need to be, so that by the end of the program's a 2 to 5 year program. By the end of the program, you would have had repaired your credit and be in a good situation to take on a mortgage on your own. As well, a good thing about this program is that we have such phenomenal experience. Our financial team is one of the most experienced in the industry, and you will have access to our trusted real estate team. As well, once you have successfully completed the program, we want you guys to spread the good news to your family and friends about the rent to own program and how it helped you transition from renting to home ownership. So to reward you guys as an incentive, we have a referral program, so that anyone that you refer to the program, you will get compensated financially for spreading the good news. And lastly, the last benefit I would like to share with you guys about the program is that you will have access to our monthly events. So like I said, this program is a tenant first program where we want to see you guys really succeed. So we have monthly events, and this will give you guys access to debt management programs, income generation programs, wealth management programs, credit building programs, and so much more. So if you're wondering if rent to own is for you, there's a lot of success stories about rent to own, people that never thought that they could get into ownership. So we believe that rent to own is right for anyone looking to get onto the path of home ownership. And the value is too great of the cost of not using rent to own when you have to live anyways. So why not be it on a path to home ownership? We just want to ask everyone to mute themselves right now, just so that there's no background noise, so that everyone could hear this valuable information. So we're just going to go over the process of sign up for the program. So the rent to own program, the first step is you sign up with us. We are licensed realtors, and in doing such, you would be required to sign a buyer representation form and a working with a realtor form. And that states that we are working on your behalf, we have your best interest in mind, and that we will work for you to make sure that you get into the program. As well, the next step is a rent to own mortgage pre-approval. So we want to, have it in stone as to how much you are pre-approved for, so that when we go house searching, we know the max value of house that you can comfortably take on month to month. So we take all your information, being, your job letter, pay stubs, Equifax credit report, and then we will do a pre-approval amount and let you know what the max amount of home that you can choose for the program. After that, that's when the fun begins. We hit the road, we do the home search, we will send you guys a catered list of properties that you can choose from. As well, like I said, this program is open to any homes in Ontario. So if you guys see homes on your own, you can send it to us, and we can look into that to make sure that is qualified for the program. Once we find the home that you like, we will do the negotiations for you guys. And then at that point, you select the date of move-in, and that's when you guys get the keys to move into your new place. So that's the overall process of how things work. And at this point, we're going to open up the floor for some questions, for some Q&A. If you have any questions, we would be glad to answer them for you at this time.